Hi everyone, and welcome to Worth the Calories. I'm Matthew Vose.
And I'm Catherine Vose.
This week is week 2 of the 2018 Bake Off season. We had Cake Week.
Good cakes.
You like cake, do you?
There was a lot of chocolate and cherry cake.
Chocolate and cherry and salted caramel.
Get in.
And buttercream and...
Catherine's happy things.
Did you just want to be on the crew this week, sort of mopping up after they've done all the bakes?
Well, I think they could introduce a new role, that of layperson taster. And I could just, hang out with Prue and eat the cakes.
Yes, you could. Yes, you could. If anyone could, I believe in you. You could do that thing. Yeah, there was some good stuff being baked this week.
Yeah.
Compared to last week, that was a little bit ordinary.
Yeah.
I think in terms of Bake Off episodes, this week was a little bit more interesting at times.
Yeah.
People having actual meltdowns.
Yeah.
Pun intended. As someone said on Twitter this week, you should always intend your puns. And we do. Here at Worth the Calories. What was our signature? It was a tray bake, any sponge, any flavour, but 16 pieces.
Yes.
Servings, something like that. And quite a good mix of stuff being made. Now, I had to double check this because for me, a tray bake is a brownie, a tiffin, millionaire's shortbread.
Yes, it's something actually quite straightforward.
Yeah,
with lesser amounts of skill than this week's than the sponge tray bake seemed to need.
Yeah, a tray bake is normally, in these terms, a thin sponge or something. I think I've only ever done it with a Swiss roll. Yeah, like a chocolate log at Christmas or something like that. So this was this is a bit interesting, a bit different.
Yeah.
2 Black Forest gateaux.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of chocolate and cherries and a bit of alcohol,
I would have happily eaten both of them, to be honest.
One of which went really well.
Yep.
Got a Hollywood handshake.
Yep.
One of which went a little bit less well.
And I think that was the theme of the differentiator between the tray bakes, to be honest, for them. I mean, okay, some of them got slight negative comments about the taste, but actually I think there was a real split in terms of the aesthetics of the tray bakes. I mean, some of them were beautiful, really sort of patisserie quality.
Yeah.
You would spend your $4.95 with your afternoon tea quite happily.
Yeah.
Type tray bakes, and some of them were very homely.
Sponged with a bit of marzipan.
I imagine they'd taste very nice, but Karen's I think was the weakest for me. It was a sponge with a slab of marzipan on top.
Yeah, almond and marzipan and rhubarb. Ugh. Sorry, rhubarb lovers out there, but which was very simple and very dry. And if you're going to go simple, you got to make it taste good.
Exactly. So Bryony's did look like a dog's dinner.
Oh, but that tasted good.
But I would have happily spooned that up.
That felt worth the calories, that one.
Yeah. Whereas Karen's is a sort of cake that you go, no, I'm doing Weight Watchers this week.
Other weight loss programs are available.
Oh, yes. True.
A couple that did fairly badly, like you say, particularly on the way they were baked. Bryony's looked bad, but Luke's was very tough.
Yeah.
Karen's was very dry. But by and large, they all did pretty okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No complete disasters.
No. And it's something that in that weekend, that was clearly a weekend in July, they'll do okay on it.
Yeah.
The heat doesn't impact you too much.
Yes, no, I think the heat wasn't a factor for that, other than maybe cooling it down for the decorations. But no one seemed to be overly impacted, did they?
No, so that was fine. So, no real comment there. I think, it was tray bakes. Not the most interesting of challenges.
I would like you to bake me both the chocolate and quiche ones, both of them, and the rum and raisin one.
Yeah, the rum and raisin one did look really good, and I have seen the recipe is now up online for that.
Yum.
Yeah, that could be quite a tasty one. So maybe one to return to. Although he had a lot of apples in there.
Oh, you don't like apple, do you?
I'm not a fan of apples in general, and it's just I don't know. I'd rather have a really good sponge, and then rum and raisin throughout it. But apples.
You see, that calls to me because I like I like a really moist cake. But yes,
I'm not sure.
The Matthew and Apple
I'm less
factor.
convinced, yeah. The technical challenge, Monet's Legato Vert, which is a pistachio Genoese, pistachio crème au beurre, and fondant made out of spinach.
It's not natural.
Both the marzipan and the fondant icing made out of spinach and spinach water.
Why? Don't they know that we have food colouring nowadays? Maybe they didn't have green food colouring in the days of Monet.
Right?
But,
I mean, are we going to have this and go, oh yeah, the sponge flavour really adds to it?
because hopefully the spinach flavour is gone.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it must be completely overpowered by the pistachios in the
True.
marzipan. Pistachios? Almonds?
Pistachios.
Pistachio. It was pistachio marzipan,
pistachio.
wasn't it? Yeah. And all the sugar in the fondant.
Yeah.
You'd think.
And you have to boil it so long to get all the water and all the colour out of it. So weird.
Yeah.
Very mixed, I think.
Yes.
Is the way to put this. So several of them who got it wrong straight away didn't mix up and knock the air out of the egg, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is the problem with Genoese. It is a temperamental sponge.
Yeah.
The slightest thing will allow it to go. And it's a little bit worrying that they were baking it in a round cake tin.
Okay.
Because normally, again, you do it for something like a Yule log, a Swiss roll, something like that. So you do it in a very wide thing.
Right.
This is going to be interesting because you pour it into a very deep base cake tin.
The idea of slicing what already looks like a thin sponge into 3 layers, I find faintly terrifying.
Yeah. So it's about 2.5 centimetres.
Yeah.
And you've got to cut that in 3.
Yeah.
That does not look like fun. I mean, I've got a cake slicer.
Yeah.
I think this is too small to be used in that terms. It's for like slicing a, 2-3 inch cake in half. So you can put buttercream in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about this. This will be interesting. And they didn't have time to cool it down, of course.
No.
And take it slowly. And
yes, indeed. So I think practical efforts by the Worth the Calories podcast team does not have to go to the time of the technical challenge.
No, and it will not, I can tell you that. Karen came out worst. She came bottom.
Oh gosh, that looked disgusting.
And she baked the sponge wrong, didn't reattempt it, and then did the top of it wrong.
It just...
Or poorly, at least.
You wouldn't... It's not just that it's not worth the calories, it's that you actively wouldn't have wanted to put that in your mouth.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, I'd agree. And actually, in contrast to last week's technical, I feel like I've learned a lot from watching it. So last week, watching the wagon wheels, it was like, okay, I can see there's some intricate stuff here, but it didn't go wrong for any of them. There were none of them we went, oh, yes, I can learn from that.
Yes.
Perhaps I should have learned from the guy not putting the water in. But by and large, it was the covering with the chocolate was the one bit.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Everything that happened to us happened differently. But I feel like this week, in watching it, there were lots of different things that I have problems with that I'll go, that's a thing to keep an eye out for. That's worth knowing. That's how you do the marzipan. Like, it was more useful. And I wonder if that's just because even though there's only one baker gone, like there were bakers this week we barely saw. We didn't see hardly anything of Kim Joy. We saw very little of Manon until the last day. So I wonder if they actually got to focus on the people who are having a bad time because there were people having a bad time.
Yeah.
Last week, everyone sort of muddled through and there were 1 or 2 who were clearly worse. This week they can sort of focus on everyone, or on the specifics rather.
Yeah, like Kim Joy just getting on with it competently.
Yeah,
that doesn't make good telly.
No, absolutely. There was an article in the week. Okay, I'm going to call out. I think this was the Metro, the Evening Standard, someone like that, who did an article. And the article was, Ruby is shown 14 times more than some other contestants. Some people are accusing Channel 4 and Love Productions of focusing on the pretty girl because they showed her so much. It's like, no, she had a really bad week.
Yeah.
Like, to have not shown the girl who was having a bad week would have been
a bit
poor.
Weird.
So,
I agree. And also, she's got a gob on her, hasn't she?
Yeah.
So
entertaining.
So she's entertaining and she's saying stuff and she's lively. I mean, Rahul, bless him, I want to have him round for tea and give him a cuddle because he's so sweet. But equally, he's not going to be making the the high energy comments that Ruby does. Manon, might be making the high energy comments. She needs a bit of a PG rating
Well,
though, so
clearly,
they're probably
yeah.
not going to show her that much.
And there was a bit of a reaction from Sandy and Noel about that as well.
Yeah.
Which, like, I've always heard they swear quite a lot on Bake Off, which I get. I think I can understand baking when you're under swearing when you're under pressure as well. But also, apparently, particularly the hosts did it when they could see someone was having a bad time. They'd swear around them because A, it would cheer them up, and B, it would stop them broadcasting it.
Yeah.
So the people who were having a particularly bad time were sort of kept safe from it by Mel and Sue, and as I understand, Sandy and Noel doing the same sort of thing. But to have included it is quite interesting.
Yes.
It's a bit of a change for this show.
Yes, indeed. I wonder if it was because it was so unnecessary.
Yeah, possibly, and possibly just we've got nothing else to show of Manon this week. We need to include something.
Yes.
Yeah. And she also talks to herself in French, so you only have a limited amount of that you can practically show. I think.
Yeah.
Because she's French. To be fair, I'm not going to criticise her for speaking another language, even though she's in England, so she should learn goddamn English.
Okay. Do you know what? I really enjoyed the bit where she was being cross at the chickens in their egg farm. I do not like the chickens.
Les poules.
Les poules.
Yeah, I quite like Manon.
Yeah.
To be fair. So going back to the technical, which is what we were talking about, it was good technical. It was quite interesting. It was something unusual. Most of them hadn't heard of it.
Yep.
And quite funny to have had now a French pudding, a French cake. That, given the English biscuit last week, the French person hadn't heard of it. None of the English people had heard of the French cake. Yeah. So, fair.
Fine.
John won.
John
came
did
second.
an amazing job.
Both looked very good. And the people who came bottom, clearly were going to come towards the bottom.
Yes.
Because they were bad.
Yep. I think it did its job. It really was if you are a skilled baker and you take a deep breath, you'll be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this is very much an early series type of challenge, because it's not now you have to fold this and do this and present it in a certain way. They were looking at the presentation to be okay, but there was nothing complex about that. It was just the baking that was the complex part. In the future, when we get into the pastries, when we get into the breads, things like that, it'll start getting much more literally technical.
Yes. Yes.
So the showstopper was a 2-tiered chocolate collar cake, or 2-tiered cake with chocolate collars on them.
Yeah.
A real mix of different things going on. A couple of people who were trying something over and above everyone else to stand out, which I always think is an interesting choice, because it almost speaks to they're worried they're not good enough to stay eaten. Maybe that's the mentality of, if everyone has a good week, I need to do something to separate myself.
Yes.
But the first half of the season...
No, you should be... I mean, doing well, showing yourself off, but equally staying on solid ground. Yeah. Like poor Bryony.
Well,
why have you done a 3rd tier?
Yeah.
Why, love? Why?
So there were, I think, 3 of them doing 3 tiers.
Yeah.
And she was one, and her 3rd tier did not go well, sadly. And it took her time away from other things. Luke was doing a 3rd tier and whipped cream.
Why?
Which... foolish boy, frankly.
Yeah.
Even I look at that, and I'm not that good at this stuff, but that was never going to be a smart choice on a very hot weekend.
No.
And Terry was doing 3 tiers with melted chocolate as the collar that he was constructing in a square, not in a round. So he had to make the piece and then assemble it, rather than just wrap it round and peel off the acetate. So some interesting choices there.
Yeah.
I feel like Terry's came off best because you could at least see it, and it was so over and above everyone else's. Yeah,
and I mean, and actually, what was left on the cake was a collar. They didn't ask for any kind of sculptural marvel in chocolate, so the bit that fell apart was the bit that wasn't actually what they asked for in the challenge anyway.
Yeah, true.
So, and I think he's really artistic, because you know, what Prue said was right. Like, you could totally see where he was going, that it was supposed to be the Eiffel Tower from the little bit of chocolate that he did get on the cake.
Yeah.
But I think that worked from last week, because the actual biscuit and flavours that he produced last week, I think, probably unfairly, were a little bit easier to achieve.
Yeah.
brandy snaps and cream and that's not that. If you can do a brandy snap, that's not difficult to get that to taste good.
No, but he did do it well over a sculpture. Like, it had to come off on the day, and it did.
Absolutely, and it did, but it was the artistic element that made him sail through and everyone go wow about that last week. And this week, it's the artistic element that saved him, but the cake underneath, not that fab.
Yeah, there was no real comment about it. In fact, I think, the comment was boring cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at some point, he's going to come a cropper because it's not an art show. As amazing as his artistic talent is, it's a cake show. And if you can't get the cake right, you're not going to win. Yeah.
Well, so let's go to Karen, who... she did a collar. She did a chocolate collar, but it was supposed to be a chocolate collar with a design. She put a chocolate collar on there and then piped her design onto it. Which I think is cheating a little bit.
I think she was doing something that she knew she could do and she executed it well.
Yes.
She saved herself with that cake.
Yeah, the piping looked immaculate.
Yes.
It was very well done.
Yes.
I don't feel like she designed a chocolate collar and put it on there. She put a collar of chocolate on there.
No, you're right. I mean, you're right, but I guess her collar, what she did do, she executed immaculately. That was a beautiful, glossy, full collar.
Yeah.
It's just it didn't have the complexity of some of the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it all came off well for her, so she rescued herself from that.
Yep.
I think compared to how everyone else had done.
Yeah.
Rahul, I think we need to comment on.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Like that was top draw.
Yeah. You would see that again in a patisserie Valerie, in a Chocky Wocky Doodah, Hotel Chocolat, somewhere type place, and go, yeah, that's a really impressive cake.
Yeah.
It looked really good. Shards of chocolate on top of a cake is a very good look. We've seen that before last season in the Bake Off, and it looked excellent then. Definitely something to remember, I think. I think I will be doing that.
Nice.
But his piping was excellent. His chocolate collar was excellent. The flavours were excellent. Good lad.
And everything was so crisp.
Yeah.
And held to, and like how did he keep it so crisp and held together in that heat?
Yeah.
When everyone else was like melting.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I mean there was one that was particularly melting, Luke's.
Yes.
Terry's was not doing well, but it was chocolate on its own. It didn't have anything else to bond to and get rid of its heat. I feel like the way they edited it together, made it look like everyone's was going to fall apart and it was dreadful and none of the collars were set and they were all appalling. And then except for those two, they were fine. And Manon just needed a couple of minutes more.
Yeah, you're right. They did make maybe slightly too much of the heat. Yeah. Agreed.
I was disappointed, not quite the right word, but I felt like we were going to go into this thing of them having to make comment of, okay, we know it was bad. We are going to be okay with you all. It's all fine. But actually, everyone was okay. So there was no real stress about it.
I think I'm going to take your comment there and just twist it slightly. I think the production company were disappointed. They wanted some melting, traumatic disasters.
Yeah.
And so then they decided, we'll just do the voiceovers if we had them.
Yeah. But there was a dissonance between what we were seeing and what actually happened.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Dan did very well. His was the raspberry, which when it came out looked wonderful.
Yes.
Like you had all the bowl of the raspberry, and then you had, who was the colours as well? Anthony with the sari.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Oh, that looked so good.
And then the inside of it.
Yeah, there's the colours of the sponge. Yeah, that was the one that I was like, oh, that's actually really quite impressive. Yes. If he'd done well on the other rounds, he probably could have pulled something out here.
And if the cake hadn't just tasted of saffron, wasn't that Paul's comment? Oh,
yes, yeah, there was that as well.
I'm like, that actually, because I was thinking, well, when I was looking at it, I go, wow, yeah, I want to eat it. No, I don't want to eat saffron cake.
No, absolutely.
No.
And Kim Joy put cats all over it.
Meow.
Which we loved, which was great. Not only did she paint some cats on there, she modelled some little fondant cats
very
as well.
Cute. Very cute.
Yeah. Sadly, Luke left.
Meh.
I'm not hugely surprised, but particularly over the 2 weeks. I felt last week he did not seem to have the skill of everyone else. He wasn't as bad as the people who had a bad week, but it didn't feel like he was sort of stepping up and beyond. And this week clearly had a very bad week. Poor lad.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't his first one wasn't dreadful.
No.
I think the first round, and he was 7th in the technical challenge.
Although I have got first round lemon and poppy cake, very tough. Tough like old boots, they said.
Oh, fair enough.
So
I've got written down elegant, delicious, but I may very well have written it down next to the wrong person.
Was that John's lemon cake?
Possibly.
There was a lot of lemon in that first round.
Quite possibly. Yes. I think it was John's. I think I got Luke and John. Because
he was then on for possible Star Baker, and I would have understood it, particularly with how good his Hawaiian style looked. That Hawaiian cake
beautiful.
At the end.
Looks beautiful.
I love the idea of pineapple and coconut in a cake. I love my tropical flavours. I love the look of it. I like this guy. Yeah.
Yes.
He has got some style going on.
Yeah. No, he's nice.
But yeah, Rahul, Star Baker, I think earned.
I think he works very hard at, like, which one was it? The first one, the signature. He said he'd baked it about 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, because he was the one who, in talking about people trying stuff, he did 2 layers to his sponge cake.
Yep.
And it came out looking like something from a proper patisserie.
Yep.
So good on him. But for anyone else, it would end up, one of the sponges would go wrong and it would fall over and so on. But in the showstopper, he did 2 sales. So that he could have 2 things, have a backup if one doesn't go right. He is already clearly learning and figuring out how to get himself through. Do we think he could go all the way?
I think he could.
Yeah?
Yeah, especially after that showstopper. That sort of, my eyes have opened to his skill level this week.
Okay. Right. So Bryony didn't go out. It looked really close, though.
I was so tense. I'm really glad she didn't go out, but
I like Bryony a lot.
Yeah, me too. She can come round for dinner.
No, yeah, she seems like a very nice lady.
Yes.
Exactly the sort of person we would want to come round for tea. I have said this for several seasons now. There are people who do poorly in the opening rounds of Bake Off who just manage to scrape through and get on, and then end up winning or doing very well by the end because they've learned how to deal with when things go wrong. And I am hoping this is going to be her this time, that she is going to go, right, this happened to me in week 2 and I learned and I know how to do it, or I have learned to scale back and not try too much and this kind of thing. Whereas someone like Rahul, who has tried something and it's gone okay, week 4, week 5, he might try something again and it goes all wrong and he's out.
Yeah.
So it may not come to pass. It's just the narratives that you sort of get from Bake Off each season. So
no, I agree. But Bryony clearly does have the skills.
Yeah.
Because last week she showed them. I was quite surprised that she wasn't top like Star Baker last week.
I can accept Manon being first. I think, like I said, just hers just had that touch of class.
But to go from almost Star Baker to messy, weirdly baked disaster.
Yeah. From Paul's comments at the end, it actually sounded like Bryony, they had let herself down and they knew she could do better, so that's one of the reasons they might keep her.
Yeah.
Because she has more potential than she's shown.
And I guess
which is not right.
It's not right, but I guess if you've got people who are level pegging at the bottom and they're even for that week, that's the only other thing you've got to mark them on.
Yeah. Okay. A good week. A better week than for the first one, I think.
More exciting.
I think Cake Week is a better one to start it on.
Yes,
if I'm honest.
I agree.
If Love Productions, if you're listening to this, don't do Biscuit Week first again.
Dry.
Yeah, quite enjoyed it. Quite interesting. Next week's Bread Week.
Yay!
So let's talk technicals. This week we each made wagon wheels.
We did.
Mandy Chaos made wagon wheels.
She did.
Let's hear how that went. I quite enjoyed that the two of you clearly have live photos turned on, and that all of your pictures are like half a second of movement, you pulling a face as you get into the right thing.
I have a whole series that I showed Matthew last night, because Matthew told me when you're baking, take lots of photos. So I did. So it's like, that there's the jam bubbling away on the oven, and me pulling lots of faces as my mallow turns into rubber.
Yeah, I knew the marshmallow was going to be an issue. I had actually told Joseph that the day before. I was like, here's the thing that I'm worried is going to happen. And that's exactly the thing that happened.
Yeah, I did not like the mallow.
Yeah.
At all.
Looking at the recipe, the same thing. So the recipe itself is kind of, it's lots of instructions. It's a fairly complex hands-on recipe. Like, it calls itself challenging, which I get, but it's basically 4 stages. Make a dough and bake some biscuits, make some jam, make some mallow, and then combine them all and cover them in chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Largely. Like, there's a few more steps than that, but the biscuits, did anyone have any trouble with the biscuits? Any comments on the biscuits?
The biscuits were all right. I felt, given that I'm not really a baker, I still felt well within my comfort zone managing the biscuits.
Right.
And they seem to have turned out all right. They were round. I didn't burn them.
We like round things.
We like round things, yeah. They taste all right. They were, I think the biscuits were fairly straightforward.
For me, I struggled with them a little bit. And I don't know if it's just because they're meant to be slightly different than what I would call a normal, like, sugar cookie type dough. And so for the only liquid in the dough to just be the vanilla bean paste and an egg yolk left it very crumbly and, like, dry. So I struggled with that a little bit, but I mean, I got 16 round biscuits out of it. So it worked well enough,
Nice.
Yeah.
but it was frustrating a few times.
Yeah, I had that similar sort of feeling, but definitely once you start working it with your hands and the butter's melting a bit and combining it, I think that was when it... Did we all use our hands? Did we get in there and mix it up?
Of course.
I've seen how they do it on, Bake Off. And so I was like, I'm going to do this exactly the same way they do. I didn't convert the recipe. I did it with grams. I measured and weighed everything out.
Whoa, man.
I did it the way they do it.
Like a proper grown-up baker. None of this cup
I tried.
So, like, is sort of rubbing in the butter and the flour and stuff like that, is that a technique that's used in baking cookies in America, or not really? Is that a weird British technique?
Professional bakers might do it. I've never seen a cookie recipe that says do it that way.
Fair enough. Because to me, that's fairly normal. But maybe it's just that I don't bake that much, but I have a very limited repertoire. And that features in almost everything I do.
See, like most cookie doughs that I do, usually sugar cookie, they would have you cream together the sugar and the egg and the vanilla. So you've got kind of this whole sugary, liquidy bowl full of stuff. And then you've got a bowl full of flour and other dry things. And then you combine those two. And so your butter is already basically liquid because it's been combined with other stuff. So this was a different technique, but it's what they do on Great British Bake Off, and so I'm sure it was appropriate and correct.
So, biscuits came out fine, and they're fairly tasty biscuits.
Yeah.
It's a recipe I might use before. I quite enjoyed the vanilla bean paste.
I did too. It made them so lovely and specky.
So I might try that again. Then we come to the jam. Okay. How did we find the jam, Mandy?
Well, okay, here's the thing. I don't like raspberries.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's probably had a lot to do with it, but my jam didn't really set the way it was supposed to. It was very liquidy still.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how you mess it up because it's literally raspberries and sugar.
And heat and time.
I think the three of us have had three very different jam experiences. Because mine was, making jam's a lot easier than I thought it would be. But then it doesn't really look like jam, but it worked.
Yours is very much like jelly. It's got this real sort of reddy colouring to it that's like, no, that's not jam. That's not how jam looks. Mine, I cooked a little too long. I thickened it too much, which was fine up until the point I'm putting it through the sieve, and then the sieve broke.
Oh no.
And then just the handle came off on one side, so it was still just about usable for that today. And then as I'm doing it, I'm like, wow, there's nothing coming through, and so I had to scrape it off the bottom of the sieve. And then it's getting harder and thicker and thicker and thicker. And then when it came to spreading it on the biscuits, and the knife stood up in the jam.
Oh no.
So I ended up having to put it in the microwave for a bit to soften it.
Okay.
And then when you eat it, we have a biscuit over here called a Jammy Dodger. It's which has a very thick, hard jam on it, and this is even thicker and harder than that. So
It's really tasty, but it's a little bit like a chewy sweet.
it really is like
Okay.
a raspberry toffee.
So I think I didn't cook mine long enough.
Okay.
I mean, I cooked it for the time they said, but
Mhm.
it was still very, very liquidy. And it did end up looking more like a jelly. I was surprised they said to put it through the sieve, because if you look at the picture on the recipe that they put on their website, there are clearly seeds in that jam.
I was a little bit sad to put it through the sieve because I quite like a seedy jam.
Yeah, there were definitely seeds in the picture. And so I had been wondering if running it through the sieve is what made it not set for me, because what was left in the sieve was besides all the seeds, there was definitely a very like gel-like substance. And I was wondering if I needed that for it to become the consistency it needed to be. But clearly not. If Matthew, you got yours to do that, I think then I just didn't cook it long enough.
Yeah, see, I've done this before for jam and like coulis, particularly with raspberry, because the thing that I don't mind the flavour of raspberries, but it's the seedy stuff, the bits of it that annoy me. So that's why, like, I understand putting it through the sieve, and I'm okay doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, yeah, with not having to do that, it might have been a lot easier and nicer.
Yeah. But it was still, I felt very posh making jam.
Oh.
I made homemade jam.
Nice.
I've never done that before. It was fantastic.
And then there was the mallow, which was fine, and we put the mallow on and the biscuits, and there was no problem. So we'll move on from that.
I'm never ever going to make mallow again. Ever.
Given it comes in jars.
It was not a fun experience for me. I didn't like using gelatin. It just was it weirded me out. It was a bit grim. And yeah, I mean, I didn't use the right equipment for the mallow as well. And then by the time it came to piping it on the biscuits, when I tried to squeeze it out of my piping bag, I was just like, there is nothing coming out of this. And I ended up having to cut the piping bag open and slice off bits of mallow to lay over the biscuit. That was the only way there was going to get any of that mallow on that biscuit. It was just a gelatinous lump.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I
Go
don't
on.
like marshmallow either.
Okay.
Anybody who knows me knows this is no surprise. I don't like anything, apparently. But I was looking at the recipe, and the one thing that I was concerned about with how the recipe was broken down in those steps was that it wanted you to make the marshmallow before you baked the biscuits or assembled anything. And so my first thought was that marshmallow is going to cool too much, it's going to set too much, and I'm not going to be able to pipe it.
You are 100% correct.
Yeah, so you read ahead on the recipe
I did.
rather than working through it step by step.
Well, but here's the thing, though. I still did it the way it said to do it because, I mean, it's a technical challenge. It's what you're supposed to do. And while I recognize that sometimes knowledge is supposed to persevere and you're supposed to do things to make it work, I was thinking, this is Paul Hollywood's recipe. It should be written the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I did make it. I did forget to put the vanilla in the marshmallow.
Me too.
Which is fine. It's totally fine. It's because I was staring at it like, okay, is it too thick? Is it thick enough? I'm not sure. What am I supposed to do? And I eventually was like, oh, I have to turn it off now. And then after I had put it in the piping bags, I realized I never put the vanilla in. It's fine. And so mine didn't set quite to the degree that Catherine's did. I could still pipe it out of the bag.
Okay.
But it had set so much that it had all these air bubbles and stuff in it. And so it wouldn't pipe that smooth layer that it was supposed to, which is also why mine are really, really thick, because they were set so much that once you put the top layer on it and you like mash it down a little bit, there was no mashing. It was just bouncing right back.
Yep.
So I had no problems. Mine went perfectly. It was really easy. It was just great. So I had to do mine twice. On the show, was it Anthony?
Yes.
Right, Anthony made a mistake that I laughed at the time. Like, oh, what an idiot. I did exactly the same thing. I forgot to add water to my sugar when I was melting it. And so it started bubbling, and it all melted down, because sugar will eventually melt into like a caramel, and it all melted down. So I was like, right, thermometer in there. And it said, when the thermometer hits 120 degrees, take it straight off the heat and add the gelatin. So I was ready for this. Thermometer goes in, and it goes, bing, 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 160 degrees.
Oh, no.
And it's at that point where it's like, oh, now it's treacle.
Mm-hmm.
So I take it off the heat, like, okay, I'm going to have to figure out and do this again. And it sits there bubbling for like 10 minutes. It just would not cool down. in the end, because we were really worried about, like, I can't pour it down the sink because it's going to melt through a pipe. And
I was more worried that it was going to like set like a rock in
yeah,
our pipe.
exactly. So in the end, we poured it into a ramekin. We're just going to throw the ramekin away. Like, we need to pour it somewhere. And it is now like this solid thing of sugar inside this bit of glass.
Oh,
But as I'm pouring it, it's turning into spun sugar. Like, it's cooling in the air as it's dribbling out.
nice.
It was so weird. So I did it again. And on the second attempt, I added water. And let me tell you, that works. It seemed to take ages to come to the heat, to the 120
Yes.
degrees. When it was there, fine. I had to do the gelatin again because the gelatin from the first attempt had set.
Yes.
So I was like, I'm really not sure about adding this, so I had to do that, and then poured it in. I remembered the vanilla. So, score 1 for Matthew. And like you, Mandy, the whole whisking it was a bit strange because it says whisk until it's thick and glossy. And it was thick and glossy for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know how thick and glossy was. Like,
Right.
almost every, certainly dessert recipe has that stage where I'm like, can I just get a picture of what you mean? This is so vague.
I'm pretty sure it didn't mean what mine was.
Not slicing it like it's pate or something.
Yeah. I think part of my problem was I hadn't read ahead. I was literally just reading each stage, then doing it. So I'd whisked the egg in with a sort of a hand whisk in a plastic bowl, and I'd been heating the sugar syrup. And then I looked and I saw it said, turn your mixer onto its fastest setting and pour the sugar. And I was just like, I can't put this hot syrup into this plastic bowl. And B, I don't even know where the mixer is properly at the moment. So I found a hand mixer and I found what I thought were the attachments for the hand mixer. It turns out they're the kneading hooks and not the whisk. You can tell I don't bake very much. So I whisked my mallow in a metal Le Creuset pan, which I tipped the egg into with kneading hooks on a hand whisk. So it's no wonder that my mallow was not as perfect as it could have been. But I also thoroughly blame the recipe and the fact that it was the recipe's fault. It was not my ineptitude.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this recipe is a big con by saying put it in the freezer for half an hour before you've even baked it, and you've got put it in the fridge for half an hour before you've baked it, before you've rolled it out, and before it's got that 10 minutes in the freezer.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of should work toward that. Making the jam, I can understand getting some of the rest of it ready, but I think the biscuits at least need to be in the oven before you're doing your mallow.
Agree.
Yes. Agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Catherine, I am impressed that you hand whisked the egg white, though. That's pretty awesome.
Well, when I say hand whisk, we've got this weird hand whisk which you sort of pump up and down, and it makes the whisk. So it's not sort of actually just spinning around with a very basic hand whisk. It's sort of
imagine a shake weight. But you press it down on the desk and in whatever you're whisking. At the end of it has a whisk, and you pump it up and down, and the inside is like a corkscrew thing. So it forces it to whisk back and forth as you shake weight it up and down.
Okay.
Yes.
it does make my arms hurt, but
it is much better than a hand whisk.
But it's much better than a hand whisk.
Okay. All right.
And I thought, hey, we bought that at the Hampton Court Food Festival years and years ago. We ought to use it.
I stuck it in the piping thing, and I piped it just slightly too late. It piped really nicely. It just didn't quite flow because I didn't pipe to the edges. I was like, oh, it's going to spread out, and I was maybe a minute too late, a little earlier, and it would have just spread really nicely.
Yeah.
So not bad.
Yeah.
And then finally assemble and cover in chocolate. No, I got covered in chocolate. I'm not sure about the biscuits. How about you two?
I think the recipe lies when it says you can just leave it on the counter and the chocolate will set.
No, I've set mine in the fridge.
Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, I think I put all of them back in the freezer for a minute after I did it, just to make sure that they set, and then put them in the fridge.
Oh, mine are all still in the fridge right now.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you dip them? Did you spread it? How did you coat it in chocolate, Mandy?
I spread. I used a spoon to like drizzle a big blob onto each one of them, and then I spread it and kind of like coaxed it over the edges. And then I put that directly into the fridge until that set so that I could turn them over. And then after I assembled them, I did a combination of pour and that same method because I didn't actually have enough chocolate left to pour over
Right.
all of them.
Yeah.
I was running I scraped the bottom of the bowl just to get what I did get covered. And clearly there were no edges covered on mine. So
Yeah, likewise, I did the bottoms by just taking a teaspoon of it and then dribbling it on and sort of coaxing it over. The tops I mainly got poured, but yeah, there was no chance it was going to actually cover the sides as well. But equally, I had big gaping holes in my sides because the big rubbery mallow was basically, it was not a smooth edge to be covered because of how the mallow was.
I was tempted to go to the store and buy more chocolate and see if I could just make it work. But then I told myself, no, this is a technical challenge. I need to do it with the materials that I had, that it called for, and then just stop. So that's what I did. I mean, I think I could, if I had more chocolate, I probably could have made it work somehow, even though, like Catherine says, I didn't really have the edges there. I could have used a lot of chocolate and
you'd have had to have filled that. Yeah.
I think if the mallow had gone to the edge of the biscuit like it's supposed to in the right consistency, and the jam was at the edge, and actually the edge of the biscuit was a straight
Pretty
line
straight,
rather than a big cave, I think that probably makes it easier for the pouring method for the chocolate to catch on the edge and actually cover the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. And certainly your pouring method, it ended up a lot smoother. Mine was kind of spread and it was very lumpy. So, hey ho. How did they taste? Mandy, have we got any comments from Joseph? Has he actually tried them?
He did. I asked him at first, what do you think? And he said, there's a lot of stuff going on in my mouth. But it turns out he doesn't like raspberry either. And the raspberry jam is, even though there's a very small layer, it is very, very strong.
Yeah, it's very tough.
It overpowers the marshmallow and everything. Individually, all of the ingredients or the components tasted good. The biscuits were good. The marshmallow was very good. But when you add that raspberry jam element, it just kind of overpowered it a little bit. And so there are 7 more in my refrigerator that are probably not going to get eaten.
Take them to work.
Or I guess 6 more, because I did deconstruct one last night so I could just eat the biscuits.
I must say, I think it's because I used a smaller round for my biscuits, and I decided so I ended up with more than 16 biscuits. And I just thought I'll bake them anyway, and I decided not to assemble the rest of them with the horrible, horrible, evil mallow. And actually, the biscuits with the edges just dipped in chocolate are pretty nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was good.
You did a couple of sandwich ones, I think.
Yeah,
they were very nice.
I spread just the chocolate in the middle and sandwiched them together as a biscuit with chocolate in the middle. That was good too.
That's good.
So yeah, there are elements of this recipe that could be repeated.
Yes.
Without evil mallow, or in your case, evil raspberry jam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we going to do this again?
What, the technical challenge?
And make wagon wheels?
No, wagon wheels, no.
No, absolutely not.
Is there any part of it anyone's going to do again?
Jam.
Yeah.
I was really pleased because I love raspberries. So, but I was really pleased with how straightforward it was to make something that tasted quite nice for the jam, and I can see me doing that. Perhaps maybe slightly different consistency, maybe play around with the fruits and stuff, but I can see me making some vanilla ice cream with the ice cream maker that I never use, and making some kind of jammy, cooly topping
if that's
on
how you
the
do
ice
raspberry
cream.
ripple.
Quite possibly. That could be nice. Yes, because you could drizzle that in whilst it's mixing the vanilla ice cream. Yes. So that I'd do that again. And I wouldn't rule out doing the biscuits again, especially like so with the brownies. We sometimes do we get them little icing pens as an activity. Those would be if I was willing to go to the effort of baking the biscuits for them to do that instead of buying the biscuits for them to do that. Those would be good biscuits for them to do some decorating on, I think.
If you were going to go to the effort of baking biscuits or something.
Yes. I could ask you, couldn't I?
That's what normally happens.
Well, yes, because you're really good at it.
Suck up. Mandy, presumably jam for you, just gallons of jam.
Well, not raspberry jam, but I actually kind of really want to try strawberry jam now.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, I think that could be fun, and I think that would taste quite lovely.
Mm.
Since it is apparently easy to make jam, I just need to let it cook longer, but not so long that it turns into a solid gelatinous mess.
Although it is tasty to chew. So basically you're just going to be making a chewy toffee instead.
Okay, yeah. And I might be persuaded to try the biscuit again. Or at the very least, take away the knowledge that vanilla bean paste makes lovely vanilla flex in whatever you put it in and start using that in my normal sugar cookie dough.
Yeah,
do we think we can just replace vanilla essence with, or vanilla extract with bean paste? Presumably.
I think so. Yeah.
I've never seen it before, so
No.
I don't know anything about the ins and outs of using that versus essence versus, I mean, because sometimes I've seen things where you've had to actually scrape the middle out of a vanilla bean and use that, and then that seems very nice, but rather expensive.
Yeah.
I think so, but who knows?
Well, one thing I did find with this recipe is I used basically every bowl, every bit of cutlery, every Pyrex jug, and every gadget and gizmo we have, I think. This was heavily involved. Did you guys end up with all the gadgets and all the crockery? And
I did, but I got very obsessed with washing things up as I went along so that I didn't use everything at once.
Nice.
Yes, that's what I did. My kitchen was cleaner when I finished than when I started.
Nice.
Just because I was constantly, like, I didn't want to have like 5 or 6 bowls out. So I had the 2 bowls to start with. You know, the one that had, that I weighed the flour in, and then I had one that I weighed the butter in, and then I mixed it all together and washed the other bowl. And then I used that one for the sugar, you know, and so I kept like cycling through them.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of stuff going on in the kitchen at one time.
Yeah. I was absolutely exhausted after I'd finished. I just felt the need. I had to go and sit on the sofa for a little while just to get over it.
So here's a question. How long did it take you guys?
More than 2.25 hours, that's for sure. maybe 3?
Yeah, I think 2.5, 3 hours. But I did put it in the fridge and then sit down for 20 minutes and then go back and make the jam because I knew that was going to be a problem. So,
okay.
You?
Yeah, it was closer to 3 hours, but there was a moment where I did get to sit down, but that was towards the end.
Right.
I think, and that was part of the problem. It was while I was waiting for the dough to chill before I could put it in the oven, and my marshmallow was already done.
Yeah.
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 So that was the wrong time to have it sit, but that was the only time that was built in.
Mandy, I was very impressed with your thermometer. That looks like a serious bit of kit.
It was like $5.
So is it you just leave it in the pan, but the thermometer is suspended in the liquid itself?
Yeah, so the bottom of it, there's a metal base on the bottom, so the bottom of the thermometer is not touching the bottom of the pan.
Nice. I like it.
And it has a clip on the top part, so if you have a much taller pan, you can just clip it onto the side. But I was using a very short, shallow-ish pan for the jam, so I ended up having to put something behind it to prop it up. It would stand on its own for a little bit, and then it wouldn't, and it would just fall over because it was so tall.
I think we need one of those because I thought I'd broken Matthew's sugar thermometer.
You thought you'd broken my thermometer.
Well, no, it seems to work. But when I was doing the sugar syrup, I also just left the thermometer in the pan, except the bit at the top, which does the temperature reading, was resting against the side of the pan, and basically died. So I don't know if mine ever got to 120
the screen
degrees.
turned utterly black and then came back on and wouldn't change from 113 degrees.
No.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, A, I don't know if I've even hit 120 degrees. B, I may have broken one of Matthew's toys.
Oh.
So thank God I hadn't. But I also think your thermometer looks significantly better. We need one of those.
Yes, yeah.
Well, it was very, very cheap on Amazon. So
Okay. We might have to
check
find
there.
one of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I am concerned about next week's technical challenge since it's apparently cake week, but it was very green.
Yes, that green is a bit distressing, isn't it?
Yeah, is that going to be like a green tea cake thing, maybe?
Or mint.
Oh,
or...
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I'm slightly concerned about that. That might be a week I conveniently don't have time. You guys get to do it.
So I think we have to all also, for this next bake, take photos of ourselves with our green fingers after we've dealt with whatever this greenness is in the technical challenge.
Yeah. I'm a little scared, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, thank you for making with us, Mandy.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
will speak to you on the next one, I'm sure.
All right.
Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you.
So that was good.
Never again.
We've eaten a lot of wagon wheel-esque biscuits. I'm not even sure I could call them wagon wheels.
I might need to buy a wagon wheel so that I can compare what it actually tastes. Because it's been so long.
Yeah. Do you have a tuck shop at work you could go and...
They have healthy options in the vending machine.
Ugh.
Well, they purport to be
They have
healthy
spinach.
options. Purport to be healthy options. I'm not sure they are, but they're certainly not wagon wheels.
Yeah.
I might need to find a corner shop.
Yeah. The shop at the Waterloo and City Line bit of Bank Station does have a tuck shop. I'm sure they sell penguins separately. I'm sure I've noticed a penguin and gone, oh, that's weird. I wonder if they sell wagon wheels. I might check it out next time I go
Do
there.
it. Do it.
So next week's technical is bread, and we think it's going to be naan bread.
Yay!
From the look of it, which I'm quite excited about.
I'm really excited.
We like a naan bread. Naan bread makes an Indian takeaway complete.
Yep.
There's a curry, a kebab shop, but that tends more towards curry style food in Shepherd's Bush that I used to go to, and they would do a naan kebab, and they would actually roll it out and cook it on the naan. On the sort of open oven for you, and then take it down and put the chicken and the veg and things in there.
Nice.
And it was amazing.
Nice.
It was so good. So if you could do them, please.
Yeah, I am all up for becoming a non-professional.
Yeah. So should we try and time it so you cook the naan and we have a takeaway delivered just in the right time? We can see.
No problem.
Yeah?
No problem.
Bang on. This week, the technical is le gâteau vert.
Spinach cake.
I think that might be me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not even sure I can convince Mandy to cook with spinach. So that might be me talking to you about how my fingers ended up completely green. And it fell apart. And I hated it. And even the flavour wasn't that good. Although you're quite a pistachio fan.
Oh, I love pistachio.
So this could be quite a good one in terms of flavour.
Yeah. And if it holds together nicely, we could take it up north this weekend for my mum's birthday. She loves pistachios.
Give your mum a spinach cake.
Let's wait and see what it looks like.
Yeah, not tell her about that. So we shall see how that goes. Any further thoughts on how our bakers are going to do, how Bread Week's going to shape up for them?
I'm interested to see what artistic effort Terry's going to produce out of bread. It could be a lion like that dude a few seasons ago, Paul. Yeah. It's going to be interesting because it's very different. Bread is really quite different from the cakes, and I think some of them will not be bread bakers.
Right.
And they may very well struggle as a result. So interesting.
I think in the trio of Manon, Karen and Bryony, one of them is not going to be a bread baker. Possibly all of them. But I think of the three of them, there's going to be something where they're like, I like doing cakes, I like doing biscuits and pies and things of that ilk. But the sort of savoury end and the rise, like me, I don't like doing cakes. I can't be bothered with the whole rising thing.
I think Manon is going to be all like, well, on the egg farm, we break the bread, everyone. I can't do a French accent, can I?
Nor should you, perhaps.
No. Let's not have that bit.
Should we look up our stats on how many people listen from France? Write in, How good was Catherine's French accent there?
Yeah, I reckon Manon's been grown up baking the bread in the morning on the French egg farm.
Okay. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, Karen and Bryony. I just think one of them it's going to end up being, not right.
Karen.
Yeah? Karen. You just want Karen gone. I think she annoyed me last week with not helping out in eating instead of, and that might be the production company. There might have been a whole thing of her, like, going and helping and no one needed help, or it was just leave everyone alone. But it didn't quite feel like it fit in. No, I think she is coming across like the weakest. Like I think we said in the intro, there's usually someone who is not quite as strong as the rest. They're just experienced.
Yes.
So.
But she pulled out that showstopper.
But she did pull it out in the end, so well on her. Okay, so we'll see you all next week. Don't forget to check out our homepage, eloquentgushing.com, to find all our other shows. And if you like what you hear, please support us on Patreon. You can get access to exclusive content and helps to support the network and our other shows. You can find that on patreon.com/eloquentgushing. We will see you in week 3, Bread Week. On your marks, get set.
Bake!